Recording started.
Oh, it'd really help if I turn my microphone on, wouldn't it? Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes for everyone to join because I think it's just turned 11 o'clock now. So I imagine people will keep on joining for the next minute or so. See lots of people, but no pictures. Nobody brave enough to put their live cameras on. It would be really nice to see some friendly faces. I can see Sarah has joined us. Hello, giving us a wave there. Anyone else willing to give us a wave? I can see that Anne is there as well. Nice to see you, Anne. She's brave enough, giving us a wave. Oh, as well, Sarah. Nice to see you. Thank you. It does make a difference when we are online. I can see Deborah as well there. Henry as well. Oh, lots of people being brave enough to have their cameras on, which we really do appreciate. Thank you. And Elliot's there as well. Good morning to you. Right, so it's a minute past 11 now, so we will get going, but I imagine that there might be some people that join, keep on joining us. So anyway, just want to say a formal good morning to you and welcome to our Peace of Mind Members Only seminar. For those of you that might not have met me or seen me online, then I'm Katrina Rules, and I'm an associate solicitor and one of the legal advisors within the Peace of Mind team. This is the second webinar that we are hosting, and those of you who attended the first webinar back in January may recall that we have introduced these quarterly webinars this year because when we asked you all if you would like us to provide regular online updates in addition to the in-person events, the overwhelming response was yes. So you have spoken and we have listened. So the intention of this morning is to update you on the law, talk about what we're doing in the advice team, what documents the Document Audit Specialists are working on, and flag for you any updates that have been sent out and anything else that you might have missed and what you need to be looking out for in the next quarter. So before we begin, can I please just remind you to mute your microphones so that we avoid background noise. Use the chat to ask any questions, and that there will be a question and answer time at the end of the session. So if you do have a question, don't worry, we will get to them. It will just be at the end. Okay, so confirming that I'm doing the legal update. Hopefully you all think that my picture does reflect who I really am. Okay, so it wouldn't be 2026 if we weren't talking about the Employment Rights Act. So I have a couple of quick questions for you. The first one is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but do we ever really talk about anything other than the Employment Rights Act in the Peace of Mind team from your experience? So poll, answer, tick yes if you think that you haven't heard us talking about anything, you have heard us talking about other things, or no if you think, crikey, all you ever talk about is the Employment Rights Act. And I'll give a couple of minutes for those there. Oh, okay. So I'm just having a look. So do we ever really talk about anything else? I'm pleasantly surprised that the 79% of you say that we do talk about other things. Oh no, that's risen to 82% as we speak. And then 18% have said, no, this is all we ever talk about. I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised because I know that some of you think that we are focusing heavily on the Employment Rights Act, so that is good that we're not boring you too much. So the second question is this: are you currently dealing with or anticipating a situation that could become more challenging once the Employment Rights Act or a particular section of it, because we know that it's coming into force in various stages, comes into force? So we've got a number of potential answers for you there. Yes, you're already feeling the impact. Yes, you're envisaging storm clouds ahead. not yet, but you're watching the situation closely. Or it could be, no, we've got this all covered, we know what we're doing and we're sorted. Or it could be, no, it's not on my radar yet, so I haven't given it any thought. Let me know what your thoughts are there. Okay, that's interesting. So at the moment, the winner is 58% of you think not yet. You haven't felt the impact yet, but you're watching the situation closely. 30, oh, that's gone down to 57%. 33% of you saying
okay.
yes, you see storm clouds ahead. 3% are saying you're already feeling the impact. 3% are saying, no, we've got this covered, we're all okay. And 3% are being brave enough to say, no, it's not on my radar yet. In effect, it doesn't actually matter what you have answered, because we are here to help you and to get you where you need to be. I would be really interesting for those of you who may have mentioned that you are feeling the impact already, if you could write in the notes how you're feeling that impact and share that with the rest of us. That would be really handy. Those of you who attend our in-person events know that we always provide feedback sheets, and we really do welcome all feedback because we want to ensure that we continue to provide the service that you want and require from us. But it can be tricky because there is a wide range of members with different needs and priorities, which inevitably means that what is ranked as most useful by one member can be the very thing that another member finds the least useful item on the agenda. However, when it comes to the Employment Rights Act, I want to go through some statistics with you to explain why we are unapologetically focusing on it heavily at our events this year and why I'm unapologetically focusing on it this morning. So statistics from the various UK government websites are as follows. The UK government estimates that the Employment Rights Act will cost businesses approximately £1 billion annually. So a huge impact there. Small to medium enterprises, which is the majority of our Peace of Mind members, are projected to bear over 63% of the costs associated with specific changes, totaling over £680 million. On top of that, you've got the administrative load. Employers face additional costs for training managers, updating internal policies and ensuring compliance. But the government estimates it will take 1 hour or less for many of the changes, which doesn't seem so bad. And of course, you have the benefit of your Peace of Mind membership for us to help with all of that. Hopefully that's just given you a little flavour of but I've now persuaded you why it's important that we and all of you are thinking about the Employment Rights Act. So let's look at the legal side of what has changed. I suspect that the thing that most concerns, or dare I say scares you, is the reduction from 2 years to 6 months length of service requirement for employees to gain protection from unfair dismissal, because that's the thing that's been heavily focused on in the media, and we've also talked about that at our events. However, I'm not going to discuss that today because that hasn't yet come into force. However, there have been a number of other changes that came into force last Monday, the 6th of April, which was Easter Monday, and also my brother's birthday, if anyone's interested. I have put SSP at the top of the list there. That is because we know from our help desk that a large proportion of our queries relate to sickness and ill health. And so we anticipate that the effects of these changes will be felt by all of you at some point. As you probably know, SSP used to be paid from the 4th day of absence, and the employees used to have a weekly average earning at or above the lower earnings limit. The lower earnings limit currently sits at £123.25 per week to be eligible to receive SSP. However, as of last Monday, both of those elements have been removed, and so SSP is now payable from day 1 of the employee's sickness absence, and the lower earnings limit will no longer apply. Instead, SSP for lower earners will now be calculated based on a percentage of the earnings. This will be either 80% of their normal weekly earnings or £123.25 each week, whichever is the lower figure. And the idea behind this change is that those workers on low incomes were experiencing an unfair disadvantage compared to others in that they were often not eligible to receive SSP whilst off sick and were probably less able to cope with the drop in income during this time. Unfortunately for you as employers, the government doesn't appear to have given any thought to the impact on businesses, particularly SMEs, that this change could have in terms of the practical implications of employees throwing a sickie, which they will now be paid for, both in terms of covering their work and also financially. So the steps that you need to take to calculate the new SSP rate. Firstly, you will need to calculate the employee's average weekly earnings based on the previous 8-week reference period. You will then need to determine the rate, so you compare the two figures and choose the lower one. So rate A is the standard flat rate of £123.25 and rate B is 80% of the average weekly earnings. You then have to calculate the daily rate. In other words, you divide the selected weekly rate by the number of qualifying days, in other words, the scheduled working days in a week. You then multiply the daily rate by the number of sick days. So I'm just going to take you to a next slide to take you through a practical example here, give you a case scenario. So if you have an employee who is earning £250 over 3 days in the working week, 80% of £250 equals £200. But the flat rate of £123.25 is lower than the £200, so the rate is £123.25 per week, which over the course of 3 days is £41.08 per day. So a question here for you, if one of those day shifts is only 3 hours, does the employer still have to pay £41.08 despite the fact that the employee would only be paid £38.13 for that shift if they had not been sick? Yes, they would still receive the £41 for SSP, or no, they wouldn't. They would receive their normal earnings. Give you a couple of minutes for that to come through. Okay, so the statistics are changing as more people keep answering. Okay, so at the moment we're saying 70% of you think that yes, you will still have to pay the SSP rate, and 30% of you think that no, you will pay what they would have earned. So the answer is that 70% of you are correct. The answer is that yes, you will have to pay SSP, the SSP rate, which effectively means that as an employer, you will have to pay the extra £2.95 on as SSP on top of the additional £38 it will cost, in addition to the paying the other employee to work. So the overall cost to you will be £82.16 for a 3-hour shift instead of £38.13. This scenario is based on a query that we actually had from a member last week. It didn't seem to us to be morally right that you could receive more on SSP than you could for working. So we actually reached out to HMRC on this point, because on reading the rules, it does seem as though the employee would receive a higher amount of pay for the 3-hour shift than if from SSP than if they were to actually work it. HMRC's response was that the SSP weekly rate is £123.25. So if the employee is sick on the 3 days they usually work, they will be entitled to the full amount. It's either £123.25 a week or 80% of their normal weekly earnings, whichever is the lower. And that the amount of hours in the day doesn't matter when working out SSP. They also said that even though the employee would earn more in SSP on this day than if they had worked, technically on a weekly basis, they would have earned less than their normal wages. However, this would only be the case if the employee was off sick for the entire week, and if they were only sick on the 1 3-hour day but still worked the other 2 days, their weekly earnings would actually be higher than they would have been entitled to if they had worked that day. I have to say, I think this is a perfect example of unintended consequences on the government's part. But until the government realise that this is a potential outcome and do something about it, unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do about it. What I can tell you is that last week, Sheila was feeling sufficiently strongly about it that she was considering emailing the government. I'm not sure if she's actually done that or not, and if she has, whether we will get any response, but watch this space. We know that many of you are concerned about the new day one SSP payment resulting in employees taking the odd day off sick more frequently, perhaps even when they aren't sick or because they have a sick child or relative to care for. And so you might be wondering if you can now insist on medical evidence to confirm that the sickness was genuine. In theory, as employers, you are free to decide what medical evidence you require from employees and at what stage. However, for the purposes of administering SSP, you aren't allowed to insist on a doctor's certificate for at least the first 7 days. Therefore, for absences of less than 7 days, you could choose to ask for evidence of a doctor's appointment if you wanted to do so. But as this isn't a requirement for the employee to be entitled to SSP, you would still have to pay them for this, whether they give you proof of a doctor's appointment or not. Additionally, there's no legal requirement for employees to give their employer proof of a medical appointment, and you should keep in mind that some appointments might be for sensitive reasons that the employee isn't happy to share with you. And also, employees can be genuinely ill without having seen a doctor, for example, migraines, cold and flu, etc. So just because they haven't had a doctor's appointment and don't have a certificate doesn't mean that they weren't genuinely ill. So the best practical way of dealing with this is to keep a track of all absences and follow up with any employees who are frequently absent. Some employees choose to make it part of their sickness absence policy that if there are 3 separate absences within any 6-month rolling period, this will trigger a meeting with HR, which then enables you to have a discussion with the employee and see what's going on. It may then be appropriate for you to refer them for an occupational health referral. Alternatively, if the employee is adamant that they don't have any particular physical or mental health condition causing the absences and it's just being bad luck, you can consider setting them a target for improved attendance. And we do have a template letter on our portal under the sickness absence section called Absence Review Informal. So you might want to have a look at that letter and think about whether there are any scenarios that you can use it. Finally, on SSP, employers can't withhold SSP for late receipt of medical evidence because they suspect an employee was not genuinely sick or believe that the absence was for personal reasons. SSP can only be withheld for late notification of illness. If you conduct a return to work interview and it appears that an employee was not genuinely ill, then this would likely be a disciplinary matter and should be addressed under your disciplinary procedure. However, if you do face this issue, please let us know and we can advise you on the most appropriate course of action to take in the specific circumstances. So I'm just going to take you back to the previous slide and move on from SSP to look at the changes to family leave. So, as of last Monday, there has now been a change to paternity leave and shared parental leave. So, previously, there was a qualifying period, a 26 qualifying period for paternity leave and a 1-year qualifying period for unpaid parental leave. That has now changed so that both paternity leave and unpaid parental leave are now day one rights, which means that eligible employees, including fathers and partners, will be able to take these rights from their very first day of employment. In addition to this, paternity leave can now be taken after a period of shared parental leave, which didn't used to be the case. And that will make the system much more flexible, but potentially give those working in HR a bit more of a logistical headache. The government has also thankfully realised that introducing these day one rights this month means that the notice requirements for paternity leave needed amending to enable parents to actually use these rights immediately. And so they've introduced transitional provisions so that where the expected week of childbirth falls between the 5th of April and the 25th of July this year, the notice requirements are temporarily reduced. So instead of needing to give notice by the 15th week before the due date, employees will now only need to give 28 days notice. And that will allow parents who become eligible, because this is now a day one right, to actually benefit from it straight away. There's also a second transitional point employers need to be aware of. Actually, since the 18th of February this year, employees have been able to give notice for both paternity leave and unpaid parental leave, even though the rights themselves only kicked in on the 6th of April last week. That was again designed to make sure people who are newly eligible aren't blocked just because of timing. In terms of who this applies to, the extended rights will apply in birth cases where the child is born on or after 6th of April 2026. It will also apply where the expected week of childbirth starts on or after the 5th of April 2026, even if the baby was born early. And in adoption cases, the extended rights will apply where the child is placed for adoption on or after the 6th of April, and in overseas adoptions where the child enters Great Britain on or after that date. So, if you're thinking about what steps you need to be taking now, it's not just a policy update, it's also about ensuring your HR teams, managers and payroll teams are ready for much shorter lead-in times, and particularly during this early transition period. You may actually have employees who've only just started working for you who are immediately entitled to take paternity leave and parental leave. And so you'll need to respond correctly, quickly and consistently, and make sure that any new employees, as well as your all other employees, are actually aware of this change and the additional rights that they've been given. So a new type of leave has also been introduced called Bereaved Partners Paternity Leave, also referred to as BPPL, and that came into effect last Monday as well. This is a major extension of protection for families facing tragic circumstances, because this new law allows a bereaved father or partner to take up to 52 weeks of unpaid paternity leave if the child's mother or primary adopter dies within the first year of the child's life. There are also specific provisions dealing with further tragedy, so that if the child also dies, the bereaved partner can remain on paternity leave for up to 8 weeks after the child's death. In adoption situations, if the child is returned to the adoption agency following the primary adopter's death, then the partner can remain on leave for up to 8 weeks after the child has been returned. Similar rights are also extended to parents in surrogacy arrangements, so that this is clearly intended to provide broad protection across all the different family structures. For employers, this means that you will need to update your policies, and you will need to consider whether you're also going to provide entitlement to any further pay for this type of leave. And if so, your contracts will also need updating alongside your policies. So moving on now to sexual harassment and whistleblowing. Previously, under the whistleblowing regulations, sexual harassment could only be reported. I'm so sorry, my light has come off. I'm just going to look like a air traffic controller now to get the light back on. Previously, under the whistleblowing regulations, sexual harassment could only be reported under an umbrella category, for example, criminal offences. This meant that sexual harassment could only be reported if there was an overarching criminal offence that had occurred. That has now changed, so that the list of whistleblowing categories under Section 43B of the Employment Rights Act now includes sexual harassment as a relevant failure and forms the subject matter of a protected disclosure. This means that workers will now be protected from detriment, and employees will be protected from unfair dismissal. And so these changes really strengthen the overall liability on you as employers to undertake proactive risk management, systematic planning and documented preventative action, and to protect those who speak up. Anecdotally, I think it's fair to say that over the past 12 months, we've had an increase in the number of queries we receive that involve allegations of sexual harassment. And so it's important that you are up to speed with the changes. We have accordingly updated our template whistleblowing policy, which is available on the portal. And I would also remind you that there is a sexual harassment checklist and risk assessment, which I would urge you to look at if you haven't already done so. Finally, I would advise you all to provide training to your staff on the prevention of sexual harassment on a regular basis. Please don't panic if you haven't already done this. Our HR consultants have a ready-made training package, and we'll be happy to discuss your specific needs with you if that is something that you're interested in. So moving on to collective redundancies. Collective consultation is triggered where an employer is proposing to dismiss 20 or more employees as redundant at one establishment within a 90-day period. And if an employer gets that wrong or doesn't comply with the collective consultation requirements, the tribunal can make what's called a protective award. Previously, the maximum protective award was 90 days pay per affected employee, but that changed this month. And so now if you get it wrong, the protective award has doubled to 180 days pay per affected employee. This doesn't just apply to straightforward redundancy exercises. It can also apply to things like fire and rehire, where an employer is dismissing and re-engaging staff and collective consultation obligations are triggered. But doubling the award isn't a minor tweak, it's a clear message from the government that failure to collectively consult is going to be treated more seriously, and it is going to cost more when employers get it wrong. So the practical takeaway for you today is this: if you have redundancies in the pipeline, you should ensure that proposed dismissal numbers are accurately tracked and make sure you understand and comply with the collective consultation regime where these obligations are triggered. Additionally, failing to comply with the obligation to file an HR1 notice in respect of collective redundancies is a criminal offence. And we would always prefer that you contacted us before starting a collective consultation process so that we can go through the timeline with you and make sure that you're doing everything that you are to protect yourselves from any future claims and also any potential criminal charges. Trade union recognition. Traditionally, this is not something that has affected many of our Peace of Mind members. However, a number of changes have come into force last week, which simplify the statutory trade union recognition process, making it easier for unions to gain recognition. So the key changes include the removal of ballot thresholds. So the requirement that at least 40% of all workers in the proposed bargaining unit must vote in favour of recognition has been removed, and recognition will be granted if a simple majority of those voting support the union. There is reduced membership thresholds, so the requirement for the Central Arbitration Committee, the CAC, to be satisfied that a majority of workers are likely to support recognition is removed, and unions only now need to show 10% membership in the proposed unit to apply. Mandatory employer information. Employers must provide the CAC with basic contact information, including name and work type, about employees in a proposed bargaining unit within 5 working days of a recognition application. That has administrative impact for employers there. Access periods. A formal 20-day negotiation period is introduced for unions to secure access to workers with potential CAC adjudication thereafter. So these changes, along with further reforms that are expected later in the year, are likely to increase trade union visibility in the workplace, which may lead to more applications for recognition. If you haven't dealt with trade unions before, you should be prepared for the possibility of recognition applications and the need to work with trade unions in the future. Proactive employee relations strategies will become even more important so that employees are engaged and feel their concerns are addressed. And finally, a new body called the Fair Work Agency was established last Tuesday on the 7th of April. I'm not sure why that was a day later than all the other changes, but there we are. And that is an agency that's within the Department for Business and Trade to bring together existing enforcement bodies to enforce employment laws, including national minimum wage, SSP, holiday pay, and agency worker regulations. It will have the power to inspect business premises and documentation and issue civil penalties. The new Fair Work Agency merges 3 previously separate enforcement agencies, and that was HMRC's National Living Wage Enforcement Unit, the Gangmasters and Labour Abuse Authority, and the Employment Agency Standards Inspectorate. So the result is that a single regulator with powers that go well beyond what any of its predecessors possessed individually. And these powers are significant. So the agency can initiate investigations proactively without any worker complaint. It can recover up to 6 years of underpaid wages and can impose financial penalties of up to 200% of the sums owed. It has also inherited the GLAA's power to enter business premises without invitation for the purpose of inspection and to make arrests in connection with labour exploitation offences. It can bring its own employment tribunal claims in the name of a particular worker, even without that worker's consent. So for you as employers, this is an absolutely fundamental shift. Whereas previously regulatory action was reactive and depended mainly on workers coming forward, it's now intended to be proactive. Of course, we'll have to see what money the Fair Work Agency has to and resources they have to pursue all of this. But I think we should assume that we can be caught by them if we are doing something wrong. So what are the practical takeaway points for you today for this? So your holiday pay calculations, your minimum wage compliance for workers on irregular hours, and your record keeping practices all need to stand up to inspection, because the FWA can recover up to 6 years of these underpaid wages and impose the financial penalties. That means that even the modest long-standing errors can generate substantial liability for an employer. So in summary, your record keeping needs to be up to date and compliant. If you have any queries about the correct way of calculating holiday pay or your national minimum wage compliance, again, we here in the Peace of Mind team will be happy to discuss that with you. So overall, the steps you need to take away today. On the face of it, the changes that came into effect last week don't immediately seem to have too onerous in what you've got to do right away. However, there are some key takeaway points. Firstly, you need to review and update your policies and procedures. We have updated our template policies, which are available on the portal for you to download, and Emily's going to talk about that in a little while. And secondly, it's vital that you train your managers so that they not only know the law, but they are given the skills to be able to deal with situations and have what may be difficult conversations with employees. It's no use having these policies and procedures in place if your managers don't know what they say and they don't reflect your employees' lived experience in the workplace on a daily basis. What you don't want to do as well is also get into trouble by your managers giving the wrong message to employees and not dealing with situations sensitively. Finally, I would recommend that you spend some time making sure that you understand what the changes are and how they affect your organisation. I think you can all give yourselves a pat on the back for prioritising attending this webinar today. So hopefully you feel a bit more familiar with the changes that have come into place. But if you think you're in need of some more tailored advice, either from a legal perspective or from a more practical implementation perspective, then please let us know and we'll be happy to discuss your specific needs with you and who is best placed to help you with those. Finally, I'd remind you that we do have our HR consultants, Kath Dixon and Chris Bett, available to provide training to support you and your managers. In particular, if you haven't already done so, I would recommend that you seriously consider introducing training to your managers on how to manage sickness absence, and also training to all staff on sexual harassment and equality, diversity and inclusivity. They have pre-prepared packages for these three topics as they've already provided training to a number of our members, and would be happy to discuss what's involved with you. And if you're now thinking, I'm beginning to understand why the Peace of Mind team is always going on about the Employment Rights Act, and I now think I want a bit more in-depth practical help and some structure around this, then we do have our Make Work Pay programme. This isn't meant to be a sales pitch, so I'm not going to talk about that. I think Ben may touch on it a bit later, but just saying that there are practical steps that we can help you with, and we're happy to talk if that's something that you would like. So that's it for the legal section now. So I'll hand over to my colleague Emily Tilston, who's not to be confused with Emily Box, who's going to talk about the work that the Document Audit Specialists are doing and what they've done to get you up to speed. Emily will imminently be joining the legal advice team, working closely with me, because Emily B is going on maternity leave at the end of this week. I'm sure you will all join me in wishing Emily B well, and I'm sure we will keep you all up to date when there's happy news that the baby has safely arrived. And you will now be seeing Emily T on the advice side. So over to you, Emily.
Thank you, Katrina. I'm just going to take control of the slides and we will get going. So yes, hello everyone. My name is Emily and I'm at the moment one of our document audit specialists in our Peace of Mind team. But as Katrina said, I'm actually moving to the advice side very shortly. So in Document Audit, we work with you closely to arrange, draft and review your employment documentation, ensuring everything remains compliant with current legislation and best practice. You might also not know that in the Document Audit team, we actually write our Wednesday Wonders and the case summaries that are included in our Thursday newsletter, so that is something to look out for. Today, I will be taking you through a few things other than the Employment Rights Act. More specifically, we will cover 3 areas. Our current document audit process, so how we support you in keeping your employment documents accurate and up to date, our rationale behind the processes and why we do it the way we do, and finally, the star of the show, what the recent Employment Rights Act updates mean for your existing documentation. So, to kick us off, we're going to walk through our document audit process and what you can expect from us. Now, don't worry, you don't need to scribble all of this down. We've got a dedicated document audit section on our members portal where you can find everything we're talking about today, including our process guides and new member flowcharts. These do vary slightly, so if you are a newer client awaiting commencement or currently having your documents drafted, these flowcharts are a great way to understand exactly how things work and what happens at each stage. If you've recently had your documents reviewed, then this process will probably sound quite familiar. That being said, sessions like this are a great opportunity to properly explain what we do behind the scenes, clarify any common questions, and help everyone understand what to expect going forward, whether your review is coming up soon or later down the line. So, our reviews work on a booking system. We schedule you in to the next available slot with your designated document audit specialist. This approach helps us manage expectations, ensures you know when your review is coming up, and allows you to secure roughly the same slot in future years, which many clients can find helpful for planning purposes. So this is a great time for our first poll of my section. So, do you know who your designated document audit specialist is? So I'll give that a few seconds just to answer that. So if you have said no, then please do not worry at all. Feedback like this is really helpful for us as it shows where we can do more to introduce ourselves, communicate more clearly, and continue building strong working relationships with you as clients. I'll just have a quick look at the results while I'm here just to gauge things. Oh, that's quite good. 62% of us are saying yes, so that's quite a nice number. So anyway, if you haven't booked in your next review and would like to, you are very welcome to get in touch. You can contact your specialist directly if you do know who they are, or simply email POM Services and we will make sure your request is directed to the right person. Our aim is to make this process as straightforward as possible, so please do not hesitate to reach out, even if you are unsure whether you're due a review or just have a quick question. In terms of timescales, whilst we all follow the same overall process, turnaround times can vary depending on your specialist's schedule and how many reviews are already booked in. As a general guide, most reviews are completed within about 6 to 8 weeks, although this can be shorter or longer at particularly busy times of the year. We will always try to keep you informed throughout the process, so you'll know where things stand and when you can expect any updates. If anything urgent does come up on your side, then it is always worth letting us know, and we can do our best to accommodate you where we can. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure your documentation is accurate, compliant, and tailored to your organisation, while making the experience as smooth and predictable as possible for you. Once your slot is secured, you can feel confident in that your review is in process and being handled by someone who understands your business and its needs. So when you joined Peace of Mind, you may remember that we drafted a completely new set of documents for you from scratch, and you might have wondered why we took that approach. Our contracts and handbooks are carefully designed to include all the key clauses and policies your organisation needs. Because your membership includes ongoing document reviews, we want you to start with the strongest possible foundation. Providing a fresh, compliant set of documents ensures you are getting the full benefit of the service from day one. We do understand that some documents, especially our staff handbook, can feel quite detailed. That being said, we often see organisations with very complex procedures that are difficult to follow in practice. Our aim is to keep things clear, practical, and easy to use. The documents are there to support you when issues arise, not to make the processes even more complicated. On the other hand, some clients prefer shorter documents with less detail. While we will always work with you to simplify where appropriate, certain wording needs to stay in place to ensure the documents remain robust and compliant. Ultimately, these are your documents, and we will always work with you to make sure they suit your organisation and how you operate. Using documents drafted by us also means that everything aligns. Contracts, policies, and procedures are designed to work together, avoiding contradictions and ensuring consistency around your workforce. So, on to our next few polls I have for you. So, the first one being, do you know when your last document review was? So, I'll just wait for a few answers to come in there. Again, just have a little look at the responses. I'm not sure if any have come through on my side. Oh, here we are. Oh, we've got some yeses, which is very good. So that's nice to know. And so following straight on, do you know when your next doc review is due? Again, we'll just wait a few seconds for those responses to come through. Just have a little look. There we go. So yeah, quite a mixed response on that one. But again, if your answer is no, then please do not be embarrassed. Your feedback is greatly appreciated, and ultimately it helps us improve the service for you. We often find that documents left untouched for several years need significant changes when finally reviewed. Smaller, regular annual reviews are usually much easier to manage and implement than a major overhaul every few years. It is also quite common for organisations to continue using older documents that were in place before they joined us, even after new ones have been prepared. If rolling out updated documents feels quite daunting, then please do not worry, we are always here to help. Our HR team can support you with the practical side of implementation, and we are also continuing to grow our document audit support and make this process even smoother for you. Our aim is not just to produce the documents, but to make sure they are clear, current, and genuinely useful for your organisation. So now on to the exciting legal part. Many of you will already be aware of the key changes introduced by the Act, as Katrina just explained, but now we will focus specifically on what those changes mean for your documents and policies. This might seem a little bit repetitive, so I do apologise, but I will try and stick to what the documents have to change in general. So we will start with your whistleblowing policy. So as we know, sexual harassment will now be recognised as a protected disclosure under Section 43B of the Act. In practical terms, this means that employees can report sexual harassment concerns through whistleblowing channels. As a result, your policy will need to include sexual harassment within the list of protected disclosures. Again, just to touch on this quickly, and as Katrina just said, we do have a sexual harassment risk assessment on our portal, so if you do need assistance with this, then that is where to go. So we will now look at the sickness absence policy. So again, as we know, the lower earnings limit and the waiting period for SSP has been removed. Therefore, any wording referring to these, again, has to be removed. Specifically, we must amend wording to state that SSP is payable from the first day of absence, not the fourth. We must also amend the rate of SSP, which is either paid at the weekly flat rate set by the government or 80% of the employee's earnings, whichever is lower. For our policies, this would mean adding in the section referring to this new SSP rate. Moving on to paternity leave, as this is now a day one right, any references in your policies to service requirements for paternity leave will need to be removed. As well as this, we have also popped a bereaved partner's paternity leave policy onto our portal. Again, this is a new form of leave and applies where an employee's partner passes away within 52 weeks of the child's birth or placement. From now, this policy will be added into your handbook as a standard policy, but if you had a review before March, April time, this is on the portal for you. In addition, the rule preventing employees from taking paternity leave if they had already taken shared parental leave has been removed. So if you have our shared parental leave policies, this will also need to be updated to reflect that change. Finally, parental leave has now become a day one right. So previously, employees needed 1 year of service to qualify, but that requirement no longer applies. Again, any references to minimum service here should be removed. Now, I can appreciate that me speaking this at you might feel quite overwhelming. So we have updated all of these policies for you, and they can be found on our portal. So if you are worried about not making the right amendments, it will be as simple as replacing your policy with our brand new templates. Alternatively, please do not hesitate to reach out and we will always be happy to help you. So that sums up everything that I'm here to talk about today on today's webinar. Thank you for everyone for listening and for your engagement. Again, if you do have any concerns about your documents or want to book anything in, then please do reach out. As I said, these are your documents and we are always here to help. As a separate note, if there is anything that you think us in the document audit team can do to reassure you on your documents, then please, please, please do get in contact. And I promise we won't take it to heart. This is your membership and we want your experience with us to be just what you are after. So any feedback is greatly appreciated. I will now be passing on to Ben, who will be going through how to maximize your membership and we'll go through some of the additional benefits you get as POM members. So yes, Ben, if you're ready to take control there.
Thank you very much, Emily. That was lovely. Thank you. Well, thank you all for you to join our webinar this morning. We really, really appreciate it. For those who don't know me or haven't met me before, my name is Ben Smith, and I look after the business development side within the team. And we often get together and talk about what could we do to help you, our members, maximize your membership. And I think something that could be really helpful at this stage is a reminder of what is included in your membership. If you've onboarded recently, the chances are you've spoken to me and you've seen me go through what's included in the membership. But for some of you, it may have been some time since you've seen everything that's included within Peace of Mind. Peace of Mind is built on these three core areas: the document audit, as you've just heard, the designated advice team, which we love your engagement with, and hopefully you really see the value in that, but also the training and support element. And that is an area that we definitely feel our members could maximize their membership by engaging more with that. This slide here breaks those three core areas down in a lot more detail. That top layer there takes you through the doc audit and exactly everything that's included within that doc audit. But again, I just wanted to put this slide up there for everyone, just as a reminder. I don't feel like I need to go through it line by line. But for example, on that second layer, the employment law advice, I'm sure you're all aware it's unlimited employment law advice, but you may not be aware that within that, you still get up to 10 settlement agreements each year. We hope that some of you will not have to do that, but we do work with very big clients where that is something that definitely comes into play. You know, it's also, just so you know, we are there to help you with the drafting and reviewing of letters. And again, as Katrina and Emily have mentioned there, the portal is a great source of information for you. So please do, if you haven't already, engage with the portal. And that layer at the bottom there is the training and resource layer. Of course, joining this webinar maximizes your membership, so thank you for that. But there are so many other areas as well. For those that attended the mock tribunal last year, we hope you enjoyed it. I personally loved it. I've not been involved in I'm lucky not to have been involved in a tribunal before in my career. It was a real eye opener for me. So if you've not been to one before, please save that day and come along to our next mock employment tribunal. It's a really good event. But as you're doing now, join the quarterly webinars, engage with the social media groups. We've got the exclusive Facebook group. We've got the exclusive LinkedIn members only group. For those in the Facebook group, come along to the Tuesday chats, where we'll tackle a different case every week and we'll share that information. We're fortunate that our Peace of Mind members form a really strong community for us, a community of very varied businesses. And we've got that opportunity to all network and share challenges that we're all going through together. So please do engage with it. It's there for you. And we'd love you to engage more with that. In terms of other benefits, so I mentioned about the events. That QR code that you see there on the left of the screen, if you're not already receiving these in terms of the employment law newsletter and the event invite mailing list, please do scan that so you can sign up to those and always be kept up to date. But you can see all the events there that are listed. Also within the portal, you can access these events that you see on the right there. They are the exclusive member events. There you can click and book your place within those events. So we absolutely would love you to join those. Speaking of events, and as the Employment Rights Act has been a really strong theme today, you've all heard, hopefully, of our Make Work Pay program. Katrina also mentioned it earlier. We are aware that that's not been accessible for everyone who's a Peace of Mind member based on the size of your business or your current financial situation. To help maximize your memberships, we have opened up a kickoff session. We've come up with an initial event that Kath Dixon will be running on the 22nd of April. It's happening in West End in Southampton. But we've made, in an effort to make it as accessible as possible, it's £125 plus VAT to come along to that session, where we'll focus on what we know already, but it really will focus on the importance of values and getting those values in every layer of the business. That will help you with recruitment. That will help you with many areas and challenges that are going to come as a result of the Employment Rights Act. We'll also look at getting your line manager buy-in, where that's at for you at the moment and how to achieve that. And then there'll be a big interactive session at the end where you will be able to ask specific questions about your business, specific or general, and everyone in the room after that session together will be able to go through those, and you will leave feeling better about the Employment Rights Act. So if you are interested in that event, please reach out to myself, Ben Smith at warnergoodman.co.uk, or please reach out to your designated advice team. We would love to have you there in that session. Along those lines as well, and in terms of the extras, I know we had a really nice section to discuss Kath and Chris. So that one at the bottom there, the HR consultancy support, is something many of our members have benefited from, of something that's over and above peace of mind. I always love the way Sarah describes these. Sarah describes it as pick and mix. And it's exactly what this is. These items that you can see there aren't included in your standard peace of mind package, but for some of you, they can be really useful bolt-ons. And so again, some of you may have apprenticeship agreements and you really need to get those right. Some of you may have more than 10 settlement agreements a year. Or some of you, as I've mentioned, could really do with some HR consultancy support, some training, some help with your people strategy, or even someone to come and mediate a difficult situation between your employees. In terms of one of the many benefits of Warner Goodman is that we also have a number of other legal departments. We work in the employment law department, obviously, but we also have family, personal injury, property, and the private client team. And as part of another benefit for you, not just you, but all of your staff as part of being a Peace of Mind member, is you get these discounts towards these different areas of things that come up in their own personal lives. So if you're aware of this, great. If you weren't aware of this, many of our members offer these as a staff perk. And it's something that I urge you to do so, because I think it's really good. You can see here, it's 50% off of that initial meeting with our family team. The personal injury team have reduced that down to 12.5% of a successful claim. And then you can see the 5% with the property team, 5% with the private client team. So again, these are things that you may be aware of, but I just wanted to come on today and just remind you of these. And finally, from me, it's just a reminder about our referrals. I'm really pleased to know that Kat has sent out 3 referral vouchers just in the past week. We love referrals. You know yourselves when you've been referred to us, there's no better way of sharing your own experiences with working with Warner Goodman and our Peace of Mind team. So please, if there's anyone in your network that you think could benefit from our service, let us know. I'll have a chat with them, learn a bit more about their business, take them through what the benefits of Peace of Mind are. And it's very, very simple. If they go ahead and sign up, you'll get that voucher. We work with a lovely company called Experience Hampshire, and they have so many varied and interesting events that you can go to. So again, please have a think. Anyone in your network that could benefit from peace of mind, please do let us know. And I will hand back to Katrina to close off today's webinar. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ben. I think it's fair to say that you would probably have had to have been hiding under a very large rock not to be aware that we in the Peace of Mind team are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. Sarah signed up our very first Peace of Mind client in early 2006. So to commemorate this momentous occasion, we are very happy to be hosting our first Peace of Mind Members Awards ceremony, which will take place after the mock tribunal at the end of the year. This is the point where if I had the technology, I would be pressing the applause button and the cheer button here, because this is something that we in the team are excited about and hope that you will be too. So the categories of awards will be announced closer to the time, but they will focus on loyalty and your engagement with the team through all our various channels. I know that some of you are very competitive, and so my advice to you is the more you engage with us, the more likely you are to win an award. Professionally, as lawyers, we officially, of course, aren't open to bribery, but I will just say that we do all like cake. So make of that statement what you will. Before I get myself into trouble, I think we better move on to the questions and answers. Kat, I'm not sure if we have had any questions that we need to go back to.
No questions in the chat for now.
Okay, perfect. I know it's possibly like going to the doctors, that you always think of something to ask when you've left the webinar. So if that is the case, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. As most of you are probably aware, we do have the Peace of Mind Services email address, and that is the preferred way for you to contact us rather than going to us individually, because it means that your query will go straight to our help desk. Now, the help desk was introduced nearly 2 years ago now, with the view of making sure that all queries go into one central place, and then they get automatically farmed out either to the designated advisor, or if it relates to a specific topic where the help desk knows that one of the us legal advisors specialises in that particular topic, it will get sent automatically to us. We can all see everyone else's tickets, and so the idea is that you don't have to worry about contacting various individuals and getting out of office replies, which we know can be frustrating. So the help desk, we think, has been a success, and we hear from you that you do appreciate the fact that it means that you are likely to get a quicker response from us. I think that since 2026, as of last night, we had received something like over 1,200 queries this year. I think that number has already increased this morning, and that is roughly 80 queries a week. And we do have stats that I'm sure Kat can give out if need be, if you'd like to see the breakdown, but they are generally focused on disciplinary and sickness absence. So they are sort of standard themes that probably aren't going to change, and potentially only going to be exacerbated after the Employment Rights Act. I can see that Nikki has said there she has found it personally really useful to have the help desk and gets a really quick response. We do obviously try and get back to everyone as quickly as we can. We do review the queries and do our own sort of risk assessment in terms of urgency. So hopefully you can appreciate that if you're not getting the reply immediately, please be assured that we do know that you're there and we will get to you. Obviously, if something is really urgent, then please do just pick up the phone to us and we can have a chat with you, and we will get you to a legal advisor as quickly as we can. So I think that's it for today. So all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for your time today. I hope you're leaving with a clearer picture of the April changes and feeling reassured about how your Peace of Mind membership can support you through them. Remember, we're not just here when there's a problem. We want to work alongside you on a regular basis. So I would just wish you all a great rest of your day and say goodbye for now.